Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 3. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Friday show, Steelers Nation. Dave, Steelers are right in the thick of training camp, have another practice today. I guess the closest thing we'll get to Friday Night Lights, a 5 p.m. practice. And so we'll be out there again to see what happens on Friday night.
Yeah, unless you got a mouse in your pocket. No, I'm talking. No, I know you have Tim. I think Tim will be back out there with you again, won't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he will.
All right, good deal. And obviously, thanks to Tim for providing some great shots, and you for providing some great camp updates so far. So looking forward to that, and under the lights, and obviously not the same thing as Latrobe High School, right? But you definitely have to take what you can get there. So going to be a quick. You're going to have to, as I'd like to say, going to be some fast sleeping here for us these next few days.
Yeah, they have the 5 p.m. practice today and then a 1:30 practice tomorrow before their first off day on Sunday. Teams should be in pads today. They weren't in pads yesterday, so I'm guessing that was to kind of gear up for today's practice, which I expect to be more physical than what happened on Thursday.
You think you'll see some backs on backers tonight, or you think they'll wait on that?
I think they'll wait because they just did it. I mean, it's just the schedule is kind of weird. I'd be surprised if they did it since they just competed in there on Wednesday. But we'll see. I mean, this is obviously still a bit of a unique year, and so I can't sit there and say I know exactly what's going to happen.
You think Ben going to be sitting out tonight? He's probably about due for that, isn't he?
If he follows the schedule, yesterday was a half day, Wednesday was a full day, so today should be an off day. But again, I just have to wait and see. But yes, I would expect him to have an off day.
All right, where shall we begin?
Let's go over the injury report. And I know if you listened to the Steelers or the special edition of the Terrible Podcast yesterday, recapping training camp on Thursday, really not any new information to share from that episode, but we'll just kind of go over things yet again. No major injuries right now, which is a good thing. A couple days through camp, guys who did not practice yesterday at all include the wide receiver Cody White with a hamstring, tight end Eric Ebron with an elbow, Stephon Tuitt for unknown reasons, Jalen Samuels and tight end Dax Raymond left practice due to injury. Don't know the severity of those. A lot of guys were very limited, only did a little bit or basically nothing at all. That included Zach Banner, J.C. Hassenauer, Kevin Dotson, T.J. Watt, Melvin Ingram, Joe Hayden getting rest days yesterday. So, again, no serious or severe and notable injuries, so that's good. Knock on wood that continues, but a lot of guys that have not gotten work, especially in offensive line, and an offensive line that certainly needs reps both individually and collectively.
Yeah, that's the most concerning thing, I think, up until this point right now. Really kind of an underlying headline, if you will, is the fact that, man, Okorafor, not full yet, obviously, and we expected Zach Banner to not necessarily be full. And then you have, J.C. Hassenauer missing time, and then, at left guard there, Kevin Dotson not 100%. I mean, how are you going to get these guys any continuity or let them to allow them to start gelling here, through this process? Now, look, there is still 40-something days to go, but practices missed nonetheless. And they're obviously, this group's not going to be together for the Hall of Fame game. And, you kind of wonder, the second game, how much, that group will play as well too. So, it's, we've talked about what a big question mark this offensive line, or question marks there are about this offensive line, heading into this season. And now you start off training camp, you already knew that you're probably going to be down, Zach Banner not being full for a lot of it, but now you got another, 2/3 of it or whatnot, missing time at the start too. So That's concerning, and we'll obviously see how it plays out for these next 40-something days here. But that's a storyline that needs to be kind of highlighted, I think.
It does. I would say it's one of the negative storylines of training camp so far, and I don't want to be overly alarmist about it because you're right. It is July 30th. There's still a long ways to go. Those guys, there aren't any severe injuries. It doesn't appear, so those guys will work sooner than later, I hope. But the more reps they can get, and the earlier they can begin to get those reps, the better. Mike Tomlin was asked about questions about the offensive line and continuity and chemistry, and he said, we have 4 preseason games, we have a long camp, and listen, already time's been kind of lost here, and you can't get that time back. And so the more reps this group can get, hopefully that'll shorten and lessen the growing pains early in the season. But these guys haven't worked together right now, and so those growing pains may extend out, and certainly you don't want that for the Steelers.
As far as the more notable guys go, I guess, that have been partial here and there, any of them, you foresee any of them getting back out there soon and even maybe potentially getting snaps in the Hall of Fame game? And I'm guessing the answer is probably going to be no to that. But, I mean, anything of any kind of notable stature, of players that have missed that you think could potentially maybe a J.C. Hassenauer or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think Hassenauer and Dotson are close. Both were working out to some extent yesterday. Hassenauer going through on-air work and running on the side, like full sprints next to John Norwig, the head trainer. Kevin Dotson was in pads and worked with Marcel Pastor, the strength and conditioning coach or assistant. I think his title changed. I don't know what it is right now, but he got some reps on the side. So it's not like they're terribly injured and they can't do anything. They are pretty close. And Okorafor's been dressed and looks fine. So I guess there's a minor thing going on with him. So, I mean, he can't be too far away either. And Zach Banner can't be that much further behind, you wouldn't think. But to answer the question, I mean, could a Hassenauer play in the Hall of Fame game? I think that's possible. For the others, offensive linemen, I kind of doubt they're going to play on Thursday.
All right, and a lot of Mike Tomlin getting questions about guys like T.J. Watt, especially during yesterday's practice, and wondering when he might get out there more full. Dr. Mel, we talked about this I think last night on the podcast wrap up or training camp wrap up podcast there. How much plausibility is there that maybe this you want to make sure you get this contract taken care of, and or look, it's early in training camp and there's no sense to get your stars such as him involved in things this way. It could be a mix of a lot of it. Now, you seem to think, based on what you've seen, though, that he looks fine. That there's either they are just limiting him just to limit him and keep him keep their prized possession safe, or maybe TJ's saying, look, until we get this thing done, I'd kind of like I don't mind being here, but kind of take it easy on me.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible, but to start, yeah, he's healthy. He's fine. I mean, he's working out hard. He's in pads. He was in pads on, I think, Wednesday. Just didn't go through team, but was an individual type work and goes through drills. And so he looks 100% to me, unless there is something going on that you just possibly, it's impossible to see from our vantage point. But yeah, I mean, he missed the whole spring except for minicamp, right? He didn't participate in OTAs, I don't think.
Who's that? Watt?
Yeah, TJ Watt.
Yeah, he was right. He was back in Wisconsin, wasn't he, for a lot of it?
Yeah, I mean, he was there for mandatory minicamp, so maybe they just kind of like Tuitt, who missed the spring for personal reasons. They want to kind of ramp things up with him. I'm not sure. Could it be the contractual and that kind of just agreement to it? That's possible too. Although if it is that, I mean, are they not going to practice him at all until the contract gets done? Because that could still take a while. I mean, that's not something that necessarily is going to happen and get, signed, sealed, delivered in the next couple of days. So if it is that, I just wonder how they agreed upon that, because he's probably going to have to practice before that extension, if it happens, gets inked.
Well, I mean, and we have no idea to know how, his representation. I think it's CAA is who represents him. How that's going and all. It should be pretty cut and dry, man. If you ask me. I mean, I know I know you're dealing with that kind of money, and for me to say, oh, Dave, you're dealing with that kind of contract, it can't be that cut and dry. But really, when you're talking about making him, what I think he's going to become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL, and then when you look also, unless the Steelers are trying to explore avenues to go off the script with how they structure the guarantee money, I mean, to me, there's not too many things to negotiate here, right? When it comes to TJ Watt here, I don't suspect, if I had to speculate here and it not be about groins, I would say it's not going to happen before the Hall of Fame game, but maybe the week after that, I think would be a potential great time to maybe get that sort of business done there. So I will throw a dart at the board and say in between the first and in between the Hall of Fame game and their next preseason game, to me, kind of sounds like the perfect time maybe to get that done. Now, obviously, it could go later. It could go all the way up until they get on the plane for the Week 1 game against Buffalo, as we saw with Troy Polamalu years and years ago. But I think they would kind of like to get this thing put to bed, if at all possible, quicker, sooner rather than later there. So that would be my kind of shot at the board there when that might happen, and we might very well see TJ Watt just be on the side like he is now up until then. Look, I mean, they're reporting early. There's no reason to kind of rush him into things. Period. Even if he is 100% healthy, and really the same goes for Tuitt. And you really have more of an excuse with Tuitt because he was, all he went through this offseason and probably not being able to focus a lot on his training. He might be a little bit behind as far as quote-unquote football conditioning goes.
Yeah, both of those make sense. I mean, obviously Watt will practice at some point, contract or not. So not worried about it, but just interested to see, where that develops. But more valuable reps for guys like Alex Highsmith to get more time from Melvin Ingram. And, of course, the backups, Cassius Marsh, Jameer Jones, Quincy Roche. So obviously there's a lot of benefit to young guys getting extra reps by Watt, not fully participating.
Do you remember the last Steelers player to get a super lucrative second contract from the team?
That's a very specific question.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously Ben's gotten another contract, and Cameron Hayward's on his on another deal now. But when was the last, really lucrative contract done for a guy re-upping again? I suppose you. I suppose you could add Joe Hayden maybe into that, right?
Does Hayden count, even though he, wasn't homegrown by Pittsburgh? Is that counted still as a second contract?
Let's take out homegrown,
or only homegrown.
Only homegrown.
I'm sure you have the answer to it, so tell me.
David DeCastro, would it not be?
Is it? Okay.
I mean, because how many of their first round guys have they? In
that era, it was Pouncey and Hayward. All those guys got second contracts, but those were before, I guess, DeCastro.
Right, and after that, how many of the first or second rounders? Now, Juju was only really a 1-year deal, so you can't. I don't think anybody considers that this offseason here. Right. Other than and we mentioned Joe Hayden. I mean, because Bud Dupree was on a 5th-year option, right? He didn't get a lucrative deal after that. Artie Burns, nope. I mean, any of those even second rounders come close to any of that, and the answer would be no. So I was just thinking about this the other day. Thinking about, man, I wonder, going back and looking at timelines. Heck, that timeline with David DeCastro is so old now. Not even worth mixing into the equation there when they actually got him done that offseason after his 5th-year option.
Yeah, that's a good point. But Watt will be the next, and that'll happen. I think Albert Breer kind of said it was 50-50 and kind of downplayed the odds of it happening, but I'm still pretty confident the deal was going to get done, because what's the reason that it wouldn't happen? I mean, obviously it's a lot of money, but each side knows that, and Watt wants to stay in Pittsburgh. The Steelers, of course, want Watt to stay in Pittsburgh. Rooney has basically said, get this deal done. I'm pretty confident it's going to happen.
Man, I run the risk of sticking my foot in my mouth, but I can't even see where someone would write or say 50%, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I was one of the few people, what was it, a year ago, everybody said Cameron Hayward's not going to get done. Cameron Hayward's not going to get done. I said, oh yeah, he's going to get done, and it ended up being last minute, but they got him done. There is no way whatsoever, in my opinion, you can ask TJ Watt to play in 2021 on $10.089 million. None. That's, I just don't see how you could ask him to do that, to be honest with you. I mean, this is a guy that's been, obviously in the running for Defensive Player of the Year the last 2 years, and you can make, strong arguments that he got, screwed or snubbed out of both those or whatnot. It's a slap in his face to not get a deal done of some sorts. Now, if you have to change the way you do business with a guaranteed money or whatnot to get that done, so be it. I'm not expecting that to happen, but the Steelers have surprised us a little bit as far as, well, that's not the normal way that they do business, type of deals here, as of late. But Alex, I will be stunned if they do not have him signed to a new deal by week 1. I will be absolutely stunned. That's the storyline right there, is if they don't get him done, not if they get him done, in my opinion.
Right. I'm with you. So we'll see what happens, but I think we're both in lockstep on that and expecting it to happen at some point. It may take until the last second, a la Troy, but I think it will get done before this team takes the field against the Buffalo Bills.
And once again, that's going to be a new money average, I think, of anywhere between $28 to $30 million. And I think you could see a signing bonus anywhere between 40, assuming they do things the way they normally have done them, anywhere between 40 to 45 million, potentially, when it comes to Watt and the signing bonus. And you're going to see a second-year cap hit somewhere in the, $25 million range, and obviously they should have some room to kind of play with that with some sort of a second-year roster bonus in there that they normally like to do there on top of it there. But Joel Corey, when I had him on the podcast just recently, go back and listen to that, because those are pretty much the parameters I think that you're looking at there as far as first 3-year cash flow and first 2-year new money cash flow along those lines. So we've all laid it out. To me, it's just it's a matter of when is it going to happen at this point.
Right. Yeah. So we'll keep you updated on that. Dave, let's talk about kind of what's happened the last couple of days at Steelers practice. And the big name yesterday, from unknown to all the headlines, was undrafted wide receiver Rico Bussey Jr., who had a really strong practice overall, capped things off with a 30-yard touchdown to end practice in the team's 2-minute drill. Granted, he was wide open. There was some sort of busted and blown coverage. I don't know who was at fault there defensively, but Bussey made the play and had a couple other really nice catches, especially one earlier in practice down the right sideline where Justin Lane tipped it, and Bussey came down with it still and made a big play, big catch. And so a young guy, a new guy, turning some heads and wearing number 84 while he does it. And he talked about how kind of surreal it is to wear one AB's old number.
Rico Suave. That's before your time, isn't it? That was. Do you don't even know who Gerardo was, do you?
I just know Rico Suave. I don't know anything beyond that.
You don't know the song or anything like that.
No.
You might have to YouTube that one there. But it was a huge kind of top 40 pop song back in I guess it was late 80s, early 90s or whatnot. But anyway, Rico, is that the new leader in the clubhouse as far as when we talk about wide receivers that probably leader in the clubhouse when it comes to potentially making the practice squad.
As of right now, but it is just one day, and it was also in shells. And so we want to see these guys be able to do that in pads, do it in stadiums, and not fizzle out by camp's end. We've seen, Camp Darling receivers that show up early in camp but can't get it to the end and can't be the same guy, in middle of August than they were at the end of July. And so it was a good day, but I do want to add some perspective and say it was just one day.
If he can stay healthy, boy, you go back and look at some of that North Texas and Hawaii tape on him. A little bit of contested catches in there, the ability to kind of get on top of defenders a few times there, and I think Mike Tomlin has said it again the other day. If you make plays, you will not, you will be rewarded for them. Now, is every spot on the 53-man roster open? No, not really. But I mean, Tomlin has made it a point that guys that continually stick out, especially during preseason and make plays, that those guys get rewarded there. So he's a guy to watch. I think another guy you're going to probably talk about at some point, Stephen Denmark, the Valdosta State kid that we've talked about here recently.
Yeah, just the last note on Bussey, and that's kind of the point that Tomlin made. Just somebody who's stepping up, making some splash and getting some plays downfield, and just making some kind of big time plays in those big time moments. And so it was just good to see Bussey step up, because really no one else has done that so far very early on in camp, at least since we've been there. With Denmark, I think he had a really strong practice yesterday as well. He had some good battles against Bussey, won some, lost some, but has the size and the length and the ball skills, I think, to break up the break up passes and compete at the catch point. Had 2 breakups in wide receiver DB drills yesterday. Had another near interception in 7-on-7, and just I thought was a guy that is long and athletic and plays to his size and knows how to use that really rare and unique length that he has. And so I thought a really good practice yesterday from Stephen Denmark.
How about a point to the fence here, an early point to the fence with less than a week before the first preseason game there? A 30 or longer yard completion from Haskins to Bussey. How's that?
Hey, I'm all for it. That'd be to Haskins to anybody. But yeah, I think you'll definitely see Haskins show off that arm whenever he plays on Thursday.
All right, now Bussey, obviously, barring injury happen, probably not, would really take a lot for him to make the 53-man roster. When it comes to Denmark, there, as you and I talked on the recap podcast last night, man, if with Justin Lane's kind of spot up in the air there, if this team ended up keeping 6 total cornerbacks, there would presumably maybe, and especially if undrafted free agent rookie can't make it, maybe Denmark can.
With 6 corners?
If they keep 6 corners, right?
Well, who would be the 6? Because you would have if Lane is on the roster. Or off
I'm saying
roster?
If Lane does not end up making the roster.
Well, then who would be 5 and 6? You'd have.
Well, I'm saying
Denmark.
Shakur Brown. I'm saying
Okay.
He's not going to make it either. I'm saying if a rookie undrafted free agent doesn't make it, then you're looking. Is there? I'm asking, is there a spot for Denmark to get in there and get one that way?
No, I think that there would be, because if Lane doesn't make it and one of these undrafted guys doesn't make it, I mean, you have 4 corners, right?
Right.
You have Hayden,
Pierre.
Sutton, Pierre, and Arthur Millette. And so there's 4, and you need to keep at least 5 and potentially 6. So if 5th spot is wide open, you could also be looking outside the organization as well. But Denmark, if he makes plays like this, makes plays in the football, he always had the physical tools, being 6'2", 220, ran like crazy, jumped like crazy, and maybe it's taken a little while for it to come together for him because he was a receiver in college and now he transitioned to corner, and so he's got those receiver ball skills where he can really locate and play the ball in the air. And so he has that background. I think that helps him when he's playing corner. Are
we to the point now, and I forgot to look, we'll start talking about this in a little bit. You kind of you did your own kind of Steelers depth chart based on who's sitting out practices and what you've observed from there. Are we considering, and I forgot to look at specifically, are we considering Antoine Brooks Jr. a cornerback right now?
Yeah, I have him as a slot corner because that's how he's been working so far. So
Okay.
I'll put him in with the, even though he's that safety type, at least when he got drafted, I'll consider him, I guess, a slot corner. So that could be, I guess, in some sense, a fifth corner. Obviously, he could still play safety if they needed him to as well.
That's where I was kind of going with that, as maybe considering him one of the 6 corners there.
Okay. Yeah. So, speaking of that depth chart, posted it on Steelers Depot. And again, this is just based off of the guys who have been working in teams so far. So not guys like TJ Watt and Zach Banner and Okorafor and Dotson, because we haven't seen those guys. And I don't know what the ripple effects would look like in the depth chart whenever they do practice. And so it actually felt fairly similar to what the Steelers had posted on the depth chart about a week ago. But, I do have Haskins firmly ahead of Josh Dobbs right now. McFarland as the backup running back. Freiermuth as the backup tight end. And first team offensive line right now, again, with all those guys missing of Dan Moore Jr., Rashad Coward, Kendrick Green, Trey Turner, and Joe Haig. So a group that is much different than hopefully how it looks come week 1 against the Bills.
You hope? I wish you'd stop giving away all these secrets, too. All these, every tweet that you have hurts the Steelers' chances, or so we are being told, right? I mean,
I wonder if I'll be on the video board for today's practice. Please don't take video, and also Alex, stop taking notes.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it's kind of silly.
I mean, what do you think about the video aspect? I mean, would fans post a video like that?
I mean, I don't think.
I suppose you could have, right. I mean, I suppose if a team really wanted to, they could have somebody that knows how to use the search feature in Twitter, go through all that and pull out all those videos and compile some stuff that way. And I mean, why are they so concerned about? I understand if you filmed a whole practice and you had that to line up there, but look, I mean, what's stopping another team anyway from sending an advanced scout to a couple practices and filming the whole damn thing anyway?
Nothing, I suppose, but I don't know if any team would actually take the time and resources to do that. I mean, this team's going to play 4 preseason games, and so they're going to have a lot of tape out there for teams to watch. So I don't know if it really means a whole lot. I think it's just a general paranoia that exists not only in Pittsburgh but across the entire league.
No, not the Steelers, not that, and not the way the media, especially the media, being paranoid. No, right?
Right, never.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't think it obviously impacts the team too much, but certainly when I tweet and say, I promise you no team is reading that, and if they are, then shame on them for trying to suss out information.
I would like to sit with you and watch that hieroglyphics of yours. My wife was asking me about that the other day. It says, how does he get all that that play-by-play and write it down that fast? I said, I don't know. He's got some sort of shorthand or something like that. So
it's very shorthand. But you have to, because the action moves way too fast. Like if you're watching backs on backers, you can't sit there and neatly write out because you'll just miss half the action. And so you make it work. I can't
is it like a number followed by a symbol or something? Or, I mean, are we talking Da Vinci Code here or what? I mean,
I'll tell you.
I mean, if we got deep enough, could we all find Jesus this way or what?
I'd tell you, but I have to kill you, Dave, if I release my secrets.
I've already died twice anyway. So what?
You're like a cat. You got 9
lives. What's the third time?
It's just a lot of numbers and shorthand and abbreviations. And then usually if I can just read half of the words and the rest of it will come back to me. So usually if I just get a couple of words in there, I can kind of remember the rest of the play.
Well, enjoy that instant recall memory while you have it. Good thing you don't drink or never have. Yeah.
Yeah. Playing the long game here.
Right.
But yeah, the depth chart for the offense. I mean, it's, pretty standard, I would say. Nothing, I don't think, incredibly surprising there. Defense, again, same thing. Quincy Roche running third team. They'll have Jameer Jones as the second team, right outside linebacker, opposite of Cassius Marsh. So a little interesting to see Roche lagging behind to start things.
I guess Calvin Bundy's still. I guess he's off. He's an inside linebacker now. I guess there's no more debate about that because Robert Spillane was talking about being a mentor and all during his post practice press conference on Friday or on Thursday there, and mentioned being a mentor to Buddy Johnson and Calvin as well too. So that was the kind of a guy guy that I think just recently you and I have kind of said, man, is the tweener type? Is he really an edge? Is he off the ball? Because he did both. And I'm going to get the school right this time, Oklahoma State. I don't know why I keep wanting to put him at Miami, but it sounds like he's in that inside linebacker room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's off ball. I mean, he could probably line up on the edge in some third down packages. Maybe they'll mess around with that in a game or something, but he's an off ball kind of guy. I do have Antoine Brooks slightly ahead of Millette there for the nickel job, but those guys have been rotating, it feels like, every other day. Second string defensive line in their base defense, lefty end Isaiah Loudermilk, nose tackle Isaiah Buggs, and right end Henry Mondeau. So there's your second team defensive line, and obviously a very competitive battle there, and so that's how they're running right now.
Pretty good battle too, I guess. Still, at least on rotation wise with Carlos Davis and Buggs, huh?
Yeah, those guys are still battling, and I should mention, obviously, Tuitt's not included in the step chart because he hasn't practiced yet. So whenever Tuitt returns, that'll kick warmly to second string, I assume left defensive end. And so Loudermilk, will he go to right defensive end and jump Mondeau, or will he get demoted to third string? So again, there's a lot of bodies there, not a ton of reps to go around. And so whenever that group is fully together, assuming that it does at some point, interested to see what happens with Loudermilk and Mondeau.
All right, I think Dwayne Haskins coming out of the Thursday practice was kind of one of the biggish type of stories, because he had a overall good session from what I've taken your notes and other things out there as well too. There, what was the biggest maybe surprise to you when it comes to him so far in camp? And it's only obviously been a couple of practices.
Just finding consistency. I don't see any terrible throws, horribly inaccurate passes, bad processing. Obviously, the physical talent, the arm talent's there. He's making some off-platform throws, which is going to be important for Canada because they're going to run a lot of half boots and rollouts and stuff like that to the right and to the left. And so he had one rolling out. I think this was on Wednesday. Maybe it was yesterday. The days are going to start running together, but rolling out to his left, off-balance throw, and made a really strong throw to Kevin Rader for an 18-yard gain. A nice catch by Rader as well to finish that one. So just not seeing the high variance plays with Dwayne Haskins. You're just seeing a lot of strong, consistent play. And again, this is just practice. Quarterbacks can't get hit. I'm sure Haskins has thrived in a practice setting every stop in his career because of the physical talent is legit, and the velocity. You can definitely feel the difference between when Haskins throws the football versus when Rudolph throws the football. It's a lot more zip on Haskins throws, but you want to see that get applied and see the same standard inside a stadium, because when he's gotten into stadiums in the NFL, things have tend to gone wrong.
All right, before I ask a couple of key questions here, anything else you'd like to kind of get out there as far as depth chart or what you've observed so far training camp?
No, I think that's everything. Obviously, people can listen back to the special edition of the podcast to get the full recap of each day's camp coverage.
All right. Now, here's for those that maybe unfortunately have not, and shame on you if you have not been able to listen to those last two episodes there, what would kind of be your top two kind of overarching, if you had to get a message to people that have not been able to keep up with everything training camp related through the first two practices, what would kind of be the main bullet points, overarching thoughts that you'd like to convey to those people that from what you observed these first two practices that you've been at?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, it's hard to give a perfectly straight answer on that because it has been just 2 days and you're just trying to take in all the information. Obviously you mentioned the offensive line, the lack of reps with those guys as a starting five collectively. Najee Harris is going to be the starting running back. That's not a surprise, I suppose. But, I mean, he is the guy, and he's getting involved, and he looks as advertised. And then I would just say, my terrible take today is on Terrell Austin and how just kind of turnover-focused and ball-aware he's made the secondary be every single day. They're working on, turnover circuit drills and taking the football away, jugs machine, punching the ball out, and you see that apply in the practice, whether that's Trey Norwood picking up a couple of passes or James Pierre punching the ball out on Najee Harris late in a 7-on-7 play. And so I think that mindset that Austin has instilled in the secondary of take the football away, that has to be the main focus and the goal, not just tackling the catch or breaking the pass up, but let's take the football away and make those big-time splash plays. You see that reflected in the play of some young guys are obviously heeding that message.
It's still obviously way early for a question like this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. More impressive so far, James Pierre on the outside or Antoine Brooks Jr. in the slot?
I would say Pierre. I don't know if Brooks has made any particular splashy plays so far. I mean, obviously there's stuff that I could miss, and I didn't watch receivers DBs on Wednesday because I was watching backs on backers, so I don't know exactly what went down there with Pierre or Brooks for that matter. But yeah, Pierre, had the forced fumble in 7-on-7. He's had some breakups. Maybe not as much in team. He did get burned by Juju. And it should have been a long touchdown, but Juju dropped the ball, so we kind of got saved by that one. But I think there's been some more splash there from Pierre than I've seen from Brooks.
So hold off on penciling anybody in as far as the sub package goes just yet, right?
Yeah, obviously, I think they're still working all that stuff out. And once these games start, then we're going to forget about what happened in a camp practice pretty quickly, I think, overall. But yeah, they did have one play yesterday because it was a third down team session, and they were in dime, and Cam Sutton was acting as a dime defender. And so I wonder if that'll potentially still be an option, as I kind of floated out a couple of days ago.
All right, so something to monitor moving forward there. All right, where to, brother?
Let's talk about you pointed out a really good interview that Robert Spillane had mentioned that a moment ago. I really haven't gotten to listen to too much of what players have said, but you kind of talk about what did Spillane say and what kind of had you enthused with how he talked with him.
Not anything uber specific, no secrets or anything along those lines. I just, man, every time that guy this offseason, and really since his career, but I mean, particularly this offseason, I mean, anytime that guy is in front of the camera, he says all the right things. And yeah, some of it's cliche, I know, but I mean, they keep asking him, what's this rotation going to be like? Well, he says, look, I'm not a coach, those kind of things. They're just doing what I'm asking, trying to get better. Just his overall demeanor and the way he talked about it. I mentioned earlier a few minutes ago there about him taking guys like Buddy Johnson under his wing and Bundage and all like that. He gets that aspect of it as well too, and he's talking about they try to. I think they're trying to get him to tip the hand about who's going to wear the green dot. And
it should be Devin Bush, right?
Right. Well, you would think, but I think there is to some degree maybe some question about it. He, in so many words, said both of them can call it, both of them are comfortable calling it, both of them have done a good job, even going back to Devin Bush's rookie year, that they've kind of been in sync with each other because Spillane came in right at that same time, right? He was cut by the Titans and showed up not too long, I don't think, after that with the Steelers. So those two have kind of grown up in the Steelers inside linebacker room together on top of it there. So I just think once again, he didn't give anything away, or those kind of things. I just really impressed. I mean, he's 100% Steeler, I think, and he gets all of it. And I think that's kind of just the main takeaway from his interview on Friday.
Yeah, no, sounds like, that classic old school Steelers linebacker. But in terms of the green dot, I mean, how could it not be Devin Bush? Who's going to be the every down guy this year? Devin Bush or Robert Spillane? I mean, it's got to be Devin Bush. He wore it last year. So I'm sure Spillane could do it if need be, if Bush got hurt or some sort of issue. And Lord knows his linebackers all had to call plays probably at some point last season with the injuries and everything that went on. But I mean, I think it has to be Devin Bush wearing the green dot. I don't think it's even much of a question.
Right, but I mean, he didn't come out and say that though.
Right. He's not going to say anything.
Right,
yeah, he's going to keep things pretty quiet. So, yeah, good old. What's Keith Butler call him? Mick Spillane.
Yeah, he's look. I mean, he's not the most terrible. He is that one of the obviously if you're measuring athleticism of that whole room top to bottom, he's more on the plus side than the negative side there. But he makes up for a lot of it, I think, by his football intelligence there. So going to be interesting to see those two playing side by side, and rooting for UG3 maybe to make that 53 as well too if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, your five at inside linebacker could easily be Devin Bush, Robert Spillane, Buddy Johnson, UG3, and Marcus Allen. I think that's assuming UG3's back holds up, that could easily be your five for week one.
All right.
Any other interviews the players have had the last day or two, or since our last time we spoke, Dave, that you wanted to touch on?
No, Jerry O, the bits and pieces of his interview from yesterday seeping out, and asked about the issue with. Specifically with the against the Browns, right? With the whole and obviously that wasn't the only case. Having linebackers cover receivers and along those lines, and asked specifically about guys like Jarvis Landry and all that happened last year. He goes on to say, offenses try to get mismatches. So someone like Jarvis Landry, who is excellent inside, he can really work my guys. He says my guys have to be able to pound with the big boys and shake with the little guys. That sounds like such a Jerry O quote, doesn't it? So we just got to drill a lot. There's a lot of little things. There are some things when you watch Jarvis Landry play, there are some tricks that he uses. Then there are tricks that we try to use. It's like a cat and mouse game there. He says, he basically kind of chalked it up to Brown specific, that because their ability to run the football, that you have to kind of leave that heavier package out there of theirs, when sometimes even when they do go into maybe different type personnel groups that you would normally play maybe a lighter personnel group against, because of their ability to run the football.
See, that doesn't make sense to me, though, because, I get you have to stay in base because they're in like 12 personnel, they're in 21, and so you don't know if they're going to be in empty or be in tight, and that's fine. But whenever they go empty, walk the linebacker out and put the corner on the receiver and walk the linebacker out on the running back. And so just adjust that way. You just, Jerry O is basically just saying is, the Browns are going to get some good matchups against us, and, well, we're just going to keep trying it. We're going to let them get those good matchups against us, and we're going to drill it and just tell our linebackers that they have to cover Jarvis Landry, and that's just fighting a forever losing battle. Can you occasionally win that matchup? I suppose, but are you going to win that one 8 times out of 10? No, you're going to lose it 8 times out of 10. So that's the issue, the mentality of we're not going to try to fix the issue schematically. We're going to try to fix the issue technically with the technique of our linebackers and ask our linebackers, well, you got to do both. You got to stop Kareem Hunt and you got to cover Jarvis Landry. And unless you have some super high-level guys, and Devin Bush is a good athlete, of course, but even then, it's still I think it's a losing proposition.
It certainly sounds like that's the way he's pawning it off as.
Right. He's saying, well, we have to stay on our base defense against those looks. And that's totally accurate. I don't disagree with that. But that there are other answers to that problem than just personnel groupings. Your alignment, your formation, your coverage, and where you line guys up should be different, and it needs to be different. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting burned again and again and again.
Right.
So not loving the mentality there. It doesn't sound like they're going to change it, and that's going to be an issue because it's on tape. Everyone knows that's how the Steelers respond, and they have not done a good job defending empty at that heavy personnel, and it is tough to do. I get that, but you got to have a better answer, or at least a different answer to try to have a better and different outcome, and this team hasn't, and it's going to cost them again.
And opposing offenses are going to try to attack that, and especially right out of the chute. That's kind of some of the last stuff that we saw on tape. So you can bet that. Look, I mean, I would be surprised to see the Bills go right after something like
Cole
that.
Beasley's going to line up on Spillane and rock him all day, and they're going to say, "Well, Spillane's got to cover Cole Beasley," and I'm sorry, he's not going to be able to do it. That's just putting your players in position to lose.
All right, so circle this part of the podcast and see when we get to week one how if we can point back to any of this stuff.
The frustrating thing is we have this conversation on a yearly basis. This isn't a new conversation that we've had.
New. No.
This is the John Bostic on Keenan Allen, TJ Watt on Sammy Watkins, that kind of stuff. And I get the Steelers want to simplify their defense, and I get there are downsides because when you walk that linebacker out, you're basically declaring you're playing man coverage. But fine, I'll play man coverage and put my best on their best rather than play zone or try to disguise the coverage and put my worst on their best.
Devin Bush is not Fred Warner.
Right. I mean, even Fred Ward is going to struggle in those moments. I mean, obviously he could do it better than a Spillane, but again, unless you have some super high level guys like 2 Fred Warners or 2 Devin Bushes to some extent on the field, you're going to struggle. And so this defense is talent. You can play it straight up and declare your coverage and just let your talent win out. But this team wants to get cute with it, and it really hurts them.
All right.
I'm kind of running out of topics here. So anything else here that you want to touch on? I'm kind of throwing the baton to you today, Dave.
Let's see. You already got to your depth chart and all. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Talk about that failed 2-minute drill yesterday at the end. The one with Rudolph to, I think, Juju, and Tomlin seemed to be upset on several different levels there.
Yeah, it was Mason Rudolph with the first team, so Ben did not participate, but the rest of the starters did. And it was a lot of checkdowns, a lot of stuff thrown short. I can try to find some of the yardage numbers I have here. He hit Juju for a gain of about 4, then hit Freiermuth for 6, Smith-Schuster again for 8. Deontay Johnson had a good yak run for 15. It was a short crosser. He took off and kind of ran back to the left side. Rudolph hit a check down to Najee. Offense called a timeout for about 7 yards, and then Rudolph couldn't find anything initially, kind of threw it to Smith-Schuster running right to left, and then Fitzpatrick, full tackle, took him to the ground at the 3, and the offense tried to spike the football, ran out of time, and so the defense won the drill. And so really no throws downfield, and Tomlin said after practice they got to take a shot into the end zone on that session.
All right. He talked about that a little after practice. He had a lot of positive things, I think, to also say about Dwayne Haskins as well, too. See if I can find that quote here real quick about what he had to say about Haskins. Was
that in reference to the 2-minute drill or just his overall?
I think just overall, what have you liked about Dwayne Haskins so far? He says, I like what he's doing. He's taking care of the ball, but at the same time being aggressive. He's dialed been in the reps in which he's not going. He's building a rapport with a group of guys that he's getting an opportunity to work with, and I think that's a component of this that we don't often talk about too, is there's a get to know in terms of cohesion, particularly when you're working with multiple groups and multiple people, and that's a guy that's getting some third group reps, that's a guy that's getting some second group reps, and so he's got a lot of people to get comfortable with there. So big praise overall just for Haskins being able to work with different groups, different wide receiver groups and all too. And if you want to highlight Tomlin talking about the cohesion and stuff like that, well, then I think you got to go back to one of the things that we've talked about a few times in this podcast is the concern about the cohesion of that starting 5 offensive line.
Right, absolutely. It's a really good point, though, I think Tomlin makes about Haskins there. And even the 2-minute drill, he pushed the ball downfield more than Rudolph. He had a cover 2 hole shot, which he missed. It was to Bussey. I don't know if Bussey should have kept running and kind of settled in a little too quickly, or if Haskins
I think
missed.
Bussey was kind of asked about. I don't know if and obviously not there. I don't know if there was more than one cover 2 hole shot, but
no, it was just one.
All right. Well, then Bussey's saying that he left one on the table there. So. Okay. I'm assuming that might have been the one. Do you think Bussey didn't? What do you think if you had? I mean, go through your head. I know you don't have instant replay here, unfortunately. You need to get on that. But what would lead you to believe that might have been on Bussey there?
Well, I'm not sure. The pass was overthrown. It was over Bussey's head, so I don't want to say overthrown, but it was over his head. It was on the far sideline, so it was hard to tell the angle and how far it may have missed. But it was covered.
Do you think it was just the two just not connecting? Just period, yeah. and maybe a slight miscommunication. Maybe Haskins, maybe slightly. Is it a combination of things? And him saying they left one on the table. It just the two of them should have been able to connect on that period.
It was open. It was available. Yeah. Okay. Bussey was slowing up because obviously, he knows the safety's over the top, and so he's trying to find that honey hole, they call it, that sweet spot right in that zone coverage. And I don't know if he could have still – because he was definitely like slowing up and it kind of stopped running. And so maybe he could have run more and caught up to it, and Haskins thought he would. And then Bussey thought, I'll kind of just kind of sit in the zone. It's hard to tell, but that was a shot that Haskins took. Another one to – I think it was Raymond that was a little more vertical and got broken up. And then he had the touchdown to Bussey, which granted, again, was a wide open play. It wasn't a spectacular throw. It was a busted coverage. But that's 3 examples of Haskins at least pushing the ball down the field for better or for worse. And Rudolph never did that on his 2-minute drill.
All right. And look.
I kind of hate that on the 2-minute drill when they just check it down 18 times because, obviously you can't tackle. They're playing a lot of zone, and that's fine, but you're taking a profit, like coaches say. But that's a drill where you want to see a guy push the ball down the field. And
plus, too, the longer the longer a drive goes and plays, lessens your opportunity, to score. I mean, because how many situations do you see 12, 13 play drives for scores?
Right. I mean, they ran out of time on Rudolph's drill. That's what happened.
And especially in those kind of situations there, in so many words, Tomlin said, "Look, you got to put that ball, you got to put that ball in the end zone." Right. Especially 15 seconds left on the clock, yada yada. But anyway, Haskins will definitely should get a lot of playing time in that Hall of Fame game there, and Dobbs too, and we'll probably see a series or two of Mason Rudolph, and then probably Haskins for a good chunk of it, and then Dobbs in there as well too. And I think one of the things that is sticking out to me, at least early here before this Hall of Fame game comes about, is, man, you've got quarterbacks on that roster, number 2, number 3, number 4, that have got preseason experience, and even more so, they've got NFL game experience as well too. These guys are not, when the lights go on, they shouldn't be kind of sweating and worried about their nerves so much. So yeah, the surrounding cast is going to be, as it is every year, going to be extremely green. But in so many words, I'm expecting the quarterbacks to play well in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, the bar is definitely high. The only problem is, they're experienced guys, but a lot of the guys that are blocking and running and catching aren't. And so you kind of have that discrepancy between their talent and their experience versus everyone else's. But yeah, I mean, those guys should play well. And plus the Cowboys defense, I mean, again, it's preseason, but that's a defense you can attack.
So lay the 1.5. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you got for us? We'll be obviously we got a quick turnaround here today, so we're going to limit this to a little under an hour.
We should talk about the linebackers, our preview for camp as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Kind of go through that, and we'll just kind of lump the edge guys and the off-ball guys and kind of run through it pretty quickly because we've talked about these guys so much already. But Highsmith, early returns year 2 have been positive. Definitely looks bigger, looks stronger, and his pass rush moves continue to be varied, and so all good signs there. Melvin Ingram is an impossibly just giant and massive and thick human being, and so really a sight to see up close and personal. I think a good camp so far for Cassius Marsh, and Quincy Roche has been, I think, quiet to start, unfortunately for him.
All right, so if you had to bet right now, still going to keep 5 outside linebackers or 4?
I'm going to go 4, and if I was making my roster prediction today, I would have T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Melvin Ingram as your top 3, and number 4, I had Quincy Roche in my first one. I'm going to switch that and say Cassius Marsh now beats out Quincy Roche.
Roche really had to make a mark on special teams, something that Marsh should be able to do, but neither of those guys probably written in pen just yet. I said it the other day, man. I put it out on Twitter. This linebacking crew, outside linebacking crew depth, I would say it was a 6 before Melvin Ingram joined it. Now it's like an 11, I think. If that guy can stay healthy, and yeah, I know it's a big if, and if all of them can stay healthy, I mean, it's easy quantifier to lay out there to give yourself an escape hatch. But if they can, I mean, Ingram looks, boy, you just get look at him, on some of those highlights in camp without pads and all. That guy's a monster, man. And if yeah, I know he's on the wrong side of 30 and all like that, and I know he didn't have the best season last season as well too. Obviously, battled that knee injury, but if he can stay healthy, and if Highsmith looks to have maybe take that second year step, and he looks good too, just on the hoof period. He looks different, a little bit different body type on top of it. I mean, once again, I think they will be fine moving on from Bud Dupree at this stage right now. Maybe against a run, we'll see, but as pure pass rushers, if the rest of that line can stay healthy there, my concerns went way down. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, I think a night and day difference in terms of just the depth and strength of that room. And, I always had confidence that, the top 2 of Watt and Highsmith could get the job done, but everything behind them, and if there was an injury and just that in-game rotation of playing 15, 20 snaps, how that would go. And so I still don't know who's going to be the starter. I still think it'll be Highsmith, but regardless, it's a really strong, I think, edge group right now. And Marsh has had a good camp, and if he's going to be a good special teamer, then that works out just fine.
I think too much, and I'll say this the rest of the time. I think too much emphasis is being put on there seems to be a division. Oh, Highsmith's got to start. And, to me, I think too much emphasis is being put on. I don't care who starts opposite T.J. Watt, to be quite honest with you, because I think there's going to be enough rotation over there on that side and all that. That to me, I don't see what the big argument's about. Okay, yeah, they definitely want him to be groomed, and more than likely 2021 is going to be a one and done for Ingram. Yeah, I get it, but too much emphasis, I think, is being put on what the role's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that, but we'll see. And I'm just interested to see whenever Watt does come back in practice, assuming it happens during camp, who is going to start opposite of T.J. Watt.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned. We'll talk about it, but I'm less concerned, to be honest with you.
I got you. Inside linebackers, again, Devin Bush. He looks good. I mean, didn't practice in team yesterday, but he carried Chase Claypool vertically down the seam on a play on Wednesday. And so athletically, he looks fine to me in terms of his movement skills. And so that's all positive. And Spillane should start opposite of him. The question is some of those backup spots and who's going to have roles and get hats and make the team. But I think, as we mentioned, Marcus Allen, UG3, and Buddy Johnson. I think it could be a quieter year one for Johnson, maybe not dressing much on Sundays right now, but we'll have to wait and see.
True or false? If all five, if everybody stays healthy, you're going to keep five, and those five will be Spillane, Bush, UG3, Buddy Johnson, and Marcus Allen.
True.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way now too. Yeah. I'm rooting for UG3 because I think he's a good special teams player, and you need that, And then Marcus Allen, the second year in that inside linebacker room as well too. And I think something key that you've already picked up on in training camp practices is Marcus Allen, personal protector.
Yep, easy up back on the punt team. Very important job there, replacing Jordan Dangerfield. Allen's had a good camp even on defense. He's around the football a lot. He's made some plays in coverage. Had a breakup yesterday, I think, on that Haskins throw in 2 minutes. So I think he's having a nice second camp as an inside linebacker. What is this, 4th year overall for him?
Who's the next guy after those five?
I mean, there aren't too many guys left. It's Calvin Bundage, it's T. Gray Scales, and I think that's the rest of them, right? There's 7 inside linebackers on the team, and Jarvis Miller as well.
I guess T. Gray maybe because he got a couple of promotions up there, last season.
Yeah, I mean Bundage is running ahead of him, but I don't know if that's a Mac Buck thing or not. So I'll go Bundage based on where they're running, and Bundage has made a play or two, but those guys are all fighting for a practice squad spot.
Okay.
And I think that's probably it for the off-ball linebackers. So that'll wrap up our linebacker preview, and we'll kind of finish things out with the secondary on Monday show because we're going to be back on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday circuit, right, Dave?
Yes, we will. Let's see here if we can get a couple of questions, sneak these in. Anyone having? Let's see. Appreciate the word from encouragement from Sean Chisholm on my stuttering there. Go through some old. I want to make sure I get to some older ones first here. It's let's see. Dennis Sheridan says just a reflection of the radio brought. This is a long one here, but in so many words, he talks about the nostalgia and growing up and hearing some of the old broadcasters and all like that. He says looking forward to catching up with you and Dave next month as the Steelers season gets underway. He says today reflecting on this nostalgia, I'm reminded how many times I said just shut up, Tunch, while listening to him and Billy do the Steelers games, but now I won't hear Tunch anymore, and for that I'm very, very sad. So a little bit, I think, more of a nostalgia email from Dennis Sheridan. I don't think we've seen something from him in the email box. So Dennis, thanks for the email there. Let us go to Pastor Joe Green. Writes in, backs on backers versus tight ends on outside linebackers. He says after the Wednesday practice, Tomlin made a very interesting statement. The video clip is, let's see, he says twice he made a statement that I do not remember him using before. He says, when asked about the tight ends being included in pickup pickup drill for backs on backers. He said twice that he is looking forward to an even more important drill to take place on Thursday, which would have been yesterday. He inferred that the backs on backers drill is of second level importance when compared to tight ends on outside linebackers blocking drill, current content being obvious. He says he was clearly calling out the tight end group. He says he is loving it. He says, our thoughts on that? By the way, loving all the content for camp. Keep up the great work. So what would your thoughts be on him clearly calling out the tight end group?
I'm trying to think about what drill he's referencing there. I don't think they did a blocking drill yesterday.
I think he's talking more about coverage there, probably.
Right. They did a coverage drill yesterday, and I didn't end up watching much of that because I was watching receivers DBs. So, but he said something about blocking, and that email had something about Tomlin talking about the blocking drill.
Did
it not?
That's
someone will have to get me the quote on Tomlin because I have not seen the quote on Tomlin myself yet.
And I don't have time to kind of fish for that right now myself. So. Maybe he can send us another email, be a little bit more specific in there.
But to the point, on backs on backers, I mean, obviously tight ends protecting in that way doesn't really happen much. And even them in pass pro, just in general, it hasn't happened a whole lot. Maybe Freiermuth will do it more than an Ebron did it, for example, but it's not something they're going to do a whole lot of. So I understand Tomlin's point of how those guys cover or, base block type stuff is going to be more important than them aligned in a 3-point stance or in the backfield trying to pick up a blitzing, off-ball linebacker or edge rusher or something like that.
Yeah, look, sometimes in some max protect type situations, you'll have a tight end on the edge, and if things go like they normally go anyway, or should, that tight end's going to get ragdolled.
Right.
You just more than anything, and a lot of times that's kind of probably hot situations anyway, right?
Yeah, a lot of times those guys just end up check releasing, where they just kind of stay in for a second and then they kind of leak out to the flat if no one's coming. So, yeah, it's not the most important drill in the world for those guys. It's more important for the running backs, and but you still try to learn about everything and just try to see how that group looks because those tight ends need as many reps as possible because it is such a young group, an unproven group, and those guys got to make mistakes and learn from them.
Look, I know why a lot of emphasis is put on backs on backers and all. Everybody loves it. It's kind of like the signaling of football is back and all like that. But you want to talk about a drill that's so heavily slanted, towards the defensive side of the ball. I think more than anything, you're looking for, and what Tomlin usually highlights, and he did the other day, especially with Najee Harris, you're looking for that demeanor of the running backs. You're looking for those guys that are not afraid to go up there and chew up the grass and have the physicality to stand in there and toe for toe. Plain and simple. Man, you get into either the college tape or some preseason tape, you find out real quick who those that have that kind of have the upside to be able to offer you something in blitz pickup and those kind of things when it comes to pass pro and linebacker. And any running backs and pass protection there. As far as the defensive side of the ball goes with that, man, you would hope your outside linebacker or your inside linebacker can run over those guys,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's well said.
All right, Nick Stenard writes in, Dave and Alex, love the podcast. You guys have been great. Love that you're synced up with Spotify. Makes it super easy to listen to. Yeah, for those that don't know, we're on Spotify and have been on Spotify for a while there. So if that's a platform you like to listen to, have at it. He says, what's your thoughts on Marcus Allen? He has been a great special teams player, and I'd love to see him stay on the roster, but I'm nervous just given that he's a core special teamer. He said he's also a Penn State guy. He was an incredible player for us at Penn State University, so always rooting for him and hope he not only gets special team snaps, but defensive snaps as well. Do we think he makes the 53? Do we think he gets defensive snaps or special teams captain? Love the show, boys. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Nick. Go ahead, Alex.
Think he makes the 53. Would he be a special teams captain? That's a good question. I don't think so. Could it be a Derek Watt? Maybe. Who knows? But I think he'll have a core role there again as that up back, as that personal protector on the punt team. Will he see defensive snaps? I don't think so out of the gate. I don't know where that could come from, what kind of sub-package role that could be.
I think things have gone wrong somewhere if he's in there on defense.
Yeah, probably means an injury of some sort. But I think he's having a good camp. It's 2 practices in, so take that, for whatever it's worth. But I think he's having a good camp.
I would think Derek Watt or Killebrew might be your had the better shot at being special teams captains. But we'll see. Nick, thanks for the email there. NorCal, let's see. NorCal writes in Mark in NorCal. Hello from Northern California. We've heard from him before a few times. Najee versus Buddy. He says, I was watching Buddy Johnson highlights and noticed in the game against Alabama, he tackled Najee Harris at or behind the line of scrimmage several times. I know I was watching his highlights, but I wondered how that matchup went through the whole game, and if you guys took a look at that particular matchup. Yeah, actually, I think that's in the I forget who did the breakdown on Buddy, the draft profile and all, but I think a lot of that was in there. And look, there was even a good rep of Buddy carrying Najee down the field into the end zone or close to the end zone a couple times on coverages there. Buddy did have a good game overall, but I think there were a couple of times, if memory serves me, that there were some diagnosed issues, I think, against Alabama in that game.
Yeah, I think it was Tyler Wise who did the report on Buddy Johnson. And, they had good battles. Harris still had a touchdown on Buddy. Remember that? It was a wheel route, I believe.
Right.
And it was good coverage.
It was good coverage, right. Right.
Harris just made, a crazy, acrobatic adjusting play and came down with it. So, yeah, it feels like Tomlin, this draft class, the Steelers kind of just watched one Saturday of college football and went, those are our guys, like A&M guys and Bama guys, those guys going against each other. And so, yeah, a lot of the Steelers draft picks knew each other, had good battles, had relationships, and so that was kind of interesting. But, I thought Johnson and Harris definitely have met before meeting in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, look, I think once again Tyler did a good job of highlighting some of that stuff in there. I remember watching that game specifically after the fact, after the draft is fact too, because you were able to get a couple birds with multiple birds with some stones because of all the players that they drafted in that game there. I remember Buddy diagnosing and making a couple of TFLs on that, but I remember also there was being, I think, some diagnosing some stuff being a little bit slow in there on top of it. Look, he doesn't fly off the tape as far as the sideline to sideline stuff goes. I mean, there is some tiny bit of stuff there when it comes to Buddy, but I think more than anything, it's kind of the point A to point B moving north south that was a little bit more impressive when it comes to a guy like Buddy.
Yeah, I'm with you. But the good news is he will get a lot of practice at getting better at that in this Matt Canada offense that is running that stuff constantly in practice.
Jim and Donna, Jim Bendis writes in, baseball sellers and buyers versus football free agents. Very depressing when the Bucks traded away Frazier and Anderson. How'd you feel about that? I mean, they always have this has turned into the Bucks Depot portion of the podcast here, I guess. It always seems like they have new talent coming in, but it's always the good guys going out, right?
I was okay with a trade. I mean, is Frazier going to be here 2 years from now? He's not. Is he going to help you win long term? He's not. So, I mean, the return, they got like the Padres, the number 5 prospect, which is, I think, pretty decent. The Anderson deal, I know it fell through in Philly and worked with Seattle. And then the trade of Clay Holmes to get that Park guy, that infielder, look really strong. So, I mean, they have to sell, and they have to get prospects and kind of rebuild this organization, rebuild the farm system. So I know it sucks. Frazier's a great player, but I was okay with it. I'm
going to get past the setup that Jim has in here and get right to the meat of the question. He says, "What do you guys think? Should the NFL move over to the MLB sellers buyers model?" My initial reaction would be no.
What exactly does he mean by?
I guess you see that certain time of year where there's just so much a team out of it and all. See, remember too, Jim, you got the whole salary cap thing in there as well too. So if baseball, I would like to see baseball to go to some sort of cap type situation. I doubt we'll see that in my lifetime. Maybe Alex will see it in his lifetime there, but. man, you have all these teams just buying these players off, and unless you're willing to compete financially, it makes it tough. So I don't know even how you could get to an NFL move over to a kind of a seller buyer's model in a salary cap era anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when the Dodgers can have a $275 million payroll with Scherzer and Turner, and the Pirates have like a $50 million payroll, I mean, the worlds are just different in terms of, roster sizes and ability to make trades and stuff like that. So maybe the overall point is, should teams be more aggressive about buying and selling? And that's probably fair. You don't really see a lot of trades happen at the deadline in the NFL, but I think it is just a different world for the reasons you mentioned.
All right, he says he wants to know, how do you keep so detailed notes and watch the practices at the same time with so much going on? Do you keep audit notes or simply chart the plays in real time?
Yeah, well, as you saw in that kind of picture I tweeted out the other day, it's all written. It's not spoken at all. It's just a lot of shorthand, and I got a decent rhythm for it of just writing, real quick notes. And I don't write names; I write numbers because it's easier and quicker. And I just write down the names whenever I write up the report later. But just write fast is kind of the secret. There really isn't a secret. You just got to write really, really, really fast.
Brian Tate writes in again, what is your favorite position drill to watch during training camp and why? He says he's always favored the wide receivers on DBs because of the athleticism on display. Alex?
I mean, that's a fun drill to watch, but it is so slanted towards the offense where I feel like it's not even real football because there's all the space and all the time in the world, and it's hard to replicate it. I mean, you got to love backs on backers for sure, but I like O-line, D-line. I like watching those guys in the trenches and those guys, with going in pass protect and pass rush, and to see who kind of wins those mono battles.
Bryce writes in kind of a lengthy one here, wants to know if it's so many words, if it's time for the Steelers to become more Belichick disciples when it comes to their philosophy on tight ends. Basically, he's saying get the more athletic flex guys and not so much guys that can block. In other words, he's asking, do the Steelers put too much emphasis on trying to find the perfect all-around tight end, I guess?
I don't know if they do that. I mean, and they do ask their tight ends to be more well-rounded than a lot of other systems. But, I mean, listen, Belichick, he's had some great blocking tight ends in his career. He's had Rob Gronkowski. He was an amazing receiver, but also a tremendous blocker. And he had Kyle Brady as well. And love Kyle Brady, who was a great blocker, not much of a receiver. So I think some of that gets overstated about Bill Belichick. My philosophy with tight ends should be, find guys who have one particular skill set, one really good blocker, one really good receiver, and kind of pair those up and have multiple, personnel groupings and stuff like that to maximize those skill sets.
And well, look, I mean, all around tight ends are tough to find anyway. That's why I enjoy the process, because it is something when you come across the Kittles and those kind of players, because the college game, you kind of are at the mercy of the college game, and college uses a lot of those kind of flex wide receivers and that tight ends that are more wide receiver than they are actual tight ends. And that's why I think those guys, the Tommy Trimbles, if you will, have a little bit more value. Have you even read anything on him, how he's progressing? I haven't paid any attention to what's going on with him.
We do a quick search and see if anything comes up, but I have not heard anything on Tremble.
He goes on to who are your top 5 GMs in the league? Man, I hate these kind of questions because I don't sit there and rank them and those kind of things. I'll tell you, Kevin Colbert remains in the top 5. I think Belichick's up there. I mean, Belichick can't draft wide receivers to save his life, though.
Yeah, I think Jason Licht's done a good job. Brett Veach. I don't have a ranking for you, though, and nothing on Tremble. But remember, teams are just reporting, too. So
right.
The Steelers were ahead of the game, so nothing there.
Let me see if I can maybe squeeze in one more here from John Carter. Hi, David, Alex. I know it's early in camp. However, do you think currently on the who do you think currently on the roster has the best chance of being traded to another team? Second question, how would you say it affects the team if a few starters take very few snaps like we've seen with Tuitt and Watt so far? I'll answer the second question first. I'm not concerned that Tuitt and Watt aren't in there right now. Where I'm concerned right now about some of these guys not taking snaps, plain and simple, it's the offensive line, because it's a retooled unit. That's where I'm concerned about some of these guys not getting snaps. I'm not concerned about Watt or Tua or those kind of guys not getting snaps yet. Alex, why don't you take the first one? However, currently on the who on the current roster has the best chance of being traded to another team?
I mean, who knows? I don't think anyone has a terribly likely or high chance of that happening. I would say a defensive lineman because the depth there is pretty strong. So whether that's Bugs or, Wormley, I suppose, but it's probably not him. Maybe flip one of those young guys for a 7th-round pick, but I don't think there's a name that's obvious about an obvious trade candidate.
I guess the really last kind of semi-notable one would have been kind of Ross Cockrell or something? Kind of late.
Late Sammy Coates got dealt too.
Sammy Coates, maybe. I mean, you'd have to be fringe, sort of pedigree guys, right? So the Steelers don't have enough. I mean, could a team have interest in Justin Lane for a 7th-round pick? I don't know. Maybe. I guess. Who else has a little bit of pedigree that would be fringe? Not many of them, right?
No. I mean, and again, the Steelers aren't in the business of trading those guys. They want to win, and they don't do it that often. Yeah. So we'll see who emerges. Obviously, that answer can and possibly will change a couple weeks from now. But a defensive lineman, maybe a Justin Lane, probably not going to trade anybody.
Yeah, I would be surprised where we sit here today. All right, we got to turn this thing around quickly, and we will be back, Alex and I, sometime Friday night. Might be into Saturday morning before you finally get to listen to this thing. But recapping the Friday night lights practice, Alex will have however long it takes him to get from Heinz Field and home and get through his hieroglyphics and cave paintings and and get it up there. So make sure you tune in to SteelersDepot.com throughout the day. We'll have the live blog running with all the tweets up there and all the good stuff, just like we normally do there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. And for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. Alex, safe travels today. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.